Welcome back to Partnerships Unraveled, the podcast where we unravel the mystery about partnerships and Channel on a weekly basis. My name's Alex Whitford. I'm the VP of Revenue here at ChannX, and this week I'm very excited to welcome our special guest, Sergio. How are you doing?
Hey Alex, how are you? Good to have this conversation today.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. I really enjoyed our preparation call when we sort of discussed some of the topics that we're going to be touching on today. Maybe for the uninitiated, you could give us an introduction about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, happy. I am Sergio Farache. I'm currently the Chief Strategy and Technology Officer of TD SYNNEX. As a brief introduction, I grew up in Latin America, in Venezuela specifically, and always in the technology sector. I am a system engineer by profession. I was entrepreneur a big part of my life, and then moved to the corporate world, and I have the privilege to be part of the corporate world in America for several years when my company was acquired by Avnet. And then from Avnet, we transitioned from Avnet Technologies, was acquired by Tech Data. Then Tech Data went independent with Apollo, and then we merged with SYNNEX, and now we are TD SYNNEX. Then we lived several transitions and learned a lot about that process. And I am very engaged with the technology segment for many years. Then I have obviously my family. We live in Miami, and I have a daughter and a son, and I love road bike. Then those are few things about me.
Awesome. So you've sort of worked for the same company and for different companies for the last 17 years, but it's all been one sort of cohesive journey.
Yeah,
almost.
it's a funny story. I have my formal recollection is more than 20 years in the same company, but has been very different companies. Then it's a good way to variate in the same house.
Yeah, I like it. Almost like you're redecorating. So you built your own company at 17, and now after you sort of meander your way through your career, you're responsible for strategy for a business that does billions in revenue. I'd love to understand what are some of the lessons that you took from that early stage business that you built that has shaped how you sort of run this global strategy today.
Yeah, I think that have the opportunity to be an entrepreneur initially give you the ability to understand many things together. I think that one of the relevant success elements of a company, of course, is have people that is significantly specialized and deep in themes. Then we love the experts. They are a critical piece of our success for sure. But sometimes where you have that trajectory, you don't necessarily see the whole picture. And be entrepreneur, owning companies and selling and evolving those companies give me the ability to really get involved in everything, from the financial side to the technology side to the service side. Then that gives you the ability to understand the whole, all the topics, and sometimes don't look, one thing, but understand the complete spectrum of the things that are needed to execute and deliver something. The other element that as an entrepreneur you have is normally is a scarcity. You don't have too many resources. You need to do everything by yourself with others. You need to find ways to execute things with a lot of obstacles. And I think that is another great factor that helped me across the career is understand how you deal with the scarcity with few resources, how you optimize the execution of a process. And again, if you ask to any successful entrepreneur, he will tell you that where he end and where he start is very different than when he start think that he will end. And that is because you fail and learn to fail. And that process is another thing that I think that contribute from that entrepreneurial expertise to understand that in many cases it's not so much be rigid in the perspective of what you want to execute, but understand what is the outcome that you want to achieve and be flexible in the ability to deal with the variables that you need to complete that outcome independent of how you achieve that outcome. And usually in some interviews and talking when I do coaching to some of the teams or the internships, etc., people ask me, what do you think that create a a real benefit in terms of be successful. And I said that of course are multiple variables, education, intelligence, and other things, but in reality, what I think that make people successful is perseverance. Because at the end, not many people is so smart. Not many people have all the solutions. Not many people have the answer the first time. But if you perseverance and you intend and go again and until you get it, you normally end getting the result and be successful. Then those are some of the things that I learned through that process.
Yeah, Sergio, I love that. I talk a lot on this podcast about the importance of mentorship and finding mentors to help guide your career. And you bring me back to a point, which is a mentor of mine told me perseverance beats IQ. Because your IQ is how good, how well are you able to predict upcoming events, but perseverance is, hey, let's go find new data and then get new data and then get new data and get new data and get new data. And if you're willing to put up with that whole process, it doesn't matter how good you are at looking round the corner. The guy down the road, if he's already round the corner because he's gone and got all of that data over the long enough time horizon, you're going to win. I just think so often people and teams and businesses are impatient to sort of jump to that next phase. But like you say, if you can just keep battling and keep going, eventually you have a perfect data set, and perfect data set means it's really easy to make great decisions.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Awesome. One of the topics that we talk a lot about on this podcast is localization versus globalization, where and how you find that balance, because I think that's a really complicated thing. In a perfect world, we'd build a global strategy and we'd just be like, this is going to work in every region, in every language, with every type of culture and with every tax complication. Unfortunately, that's never the way it actually works. Talk to me how you balance that global presence and operational strategy, but give enough flexibility to the regions to adapt.
Yeah, that is a good question and a complex question to answer. I would say that is as complex as probably the typical thing about work and life balance. You know, how you find that middle ground between those things. I think that the first thing that I will tell you in my personal life and experience with this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. You know, you won't find a way to do it quickly. You need to do it as part of a process and working together as a team. And I think that one of the things that I quickly learned when I get the strategy, the corporate strategy role, is that you cannot do a strategy in a vacuum. You need to definitely create a process and a collaboration that go bottom up to be able to understand the needs, what are the areas of interest, what are the willingness of the team, and of course intercept that with all the strategic data, trends, models, etc., that drive the success, but construct that in a process that go bottom up. And then once you have that well structured, then you can re-architect and go top bottom from a perspective of more clarity, more definition, more construction. I think that the critical factor for success is you need to have a great respect for the value that the localization, that the regions, that the countries bring to the table, because they live different realities. You cannot assume that you have a tissue that you can apply standard everywhere. Then instead of thinking and strategy that tell the people exactly what to do, the way that we interpret this is you need to create a framework. You need to create a set of principles instead of prescribed actions. And if you define an agreed framework and we have clarity on what are the areas of interest, the priorities that rule by, the must-haves in some components, and leave the regions and countries the ability to customize and operationalize those components in their reality and adapt to what they live and what they need, then you got a cohesive model that can be deployed and applied, but not a instruction layer that probably will be not adopted and have very few possibility to be successful.
Yeah, you want to teach them how to think, not what to think, right?
Fundamentally, yeah. And more than I would say, teach them. It sounds a little, too hard, because probably you can learn a lot from them. Is integrating the process, right? And basically ensure that as a corporation, you have those most to have definitions, you have a common framework, because what is real is that you cannot let the organization to move everybody in a different way, because you won't achieve to any place. Then as an organization, you need a direction, you need a framework, you need a set of priorities, and you have a common language. Once you have that, how that is customized, what are the details behind it, if the people like blue versus red, or they want to go in the morning versus in the night, those elements are not so relevant if everybody is using those principles, that framework, in that direction, in the execution.
Love it. One of the things that we spoke about, which, to be honest, I was quite surprised to hear someone call it out in quite this way, was the importance of operational efficiency, but why that's so important for growth. And I thought you had a really interesting way in terms of the fiscal importance of operational efficiency and how that allows you to do investment very, very significantly. Sergio, talk me through why businesses should be evaluating that operational efficiency to more granularity.
Yeah, I would say that, well, now we are in a complete redefine of operational efficiency with the introduction of AI, no? And I think that without a doubt, one of the key factors for a company of our scale and size, remember, TD SYNNEX is one of the largest distributors in the world, is basically a multi-billion-dollar operation. The amount of transactions, products that we sell and manage by day is incredible across the world. Then the scale is critical, and you cannot achieve a reasonable scale without operational efficiency. Then operational efficiency is a fundamental that need to rule basically the way that you go to market. But in the way that you translate that, again, is in the same principles. You need to have clarity in what are your priorities. You need to have clarity in benchmarking, meaning how you compare your processes versus industry. And now specifically, you need to have clarity in how you really re-architect and re-engineer process with the use of technology. I think that we live several stages of operational efficiency, from the normal manual process to then the technology application to then now the internet, and now the appearance of AI and agentic AI, where you now have co-workers that will be digital, completely digital, taking decisions and accelerating elements. And I think that the big paradigm shift that now we need to recognize is that in the past, you use technology to automate process. And now you need to rethink the process in the context of technology. And that is a big shift in how you address those things. To be more practical, what we do as an example in terms of how we bring that operational efficiency to our partner and our ecosystem. You can take the case of our platform StringOne. When we release StringOne, that is our cloud commerce platform, we clearly understood that the challenge that the market brings, the hyperscalers, new vendors, with the SaaSification of applications, with the introduction of infrastructure as a service, with the consumption models and all that, require a total different level of digital management and complexity. In the past, you sell a software, you visit the guy, sell the software, and 2 years later, you appear to say how the renewal is, etc. Now we are talking about success execution. You're talking about outcomes. You talk about life cycle management. Then you need to clearly automate the processes and efficiency of those processes in a digital way. Then many companies do that by themselves, but we don't operate direct to end users. We do partners, and partners go to end users. Then in the way that we released StringOne was a complete platform that enabled all the capabilities necessary for us to help the partners, but then the partners go to the end users, and digitalize all the operational workflow and journey, the user journey across all the network. And then you can deal with thousands of users with thousands of changes in terms of lifecycle management of licenses, inventory, renewal processes, billing, combination of financial models like subscription, consumption, etc. All that in a single architecture without the need to invest in those elements because we are providing that operationalization and digitalization. Then that is an example of how you bring operational efficiency to the system, because now you are drastically enabling a scale to a network that without those tools they cannot necessarily scale and connect. And some derivates from that, as an example, is we now release a set of APIs, connectors, etc., to third-party systems like the PSA connectors, the API connectors, the ITSM connectors, in a way that now we are automating not only the digital journey, but all the operationalization of that in services, in ledgers, accounting ledgers, in all the motions without manual intervention. Then all those elements contribute to operational efficiency. But again, now think in operational efficiency at the scale, because that is basically what we provide to the market.
Maybe to double click on the AI workflows, you spoke about there sort of being three distinct layers when we talk about that AI opportunity: infrastructure, embedded AI, and foundational AI models. Which of these, while all important, there is obviously an order of operations, which of these, from your perspective, is the most important for partners to capitalize on first? And maybe I'd love to also understand how is TD SYNNEX enabling that change?
Yeah, I think that all depend on the maturity level of the partner in relationship to these areas, right? Meaning, I will say that one of the things that AI is bringing is the democratization of technology, because AI is making simpler the access, the development of knowledge in terms of digitalization of component. Then I will say that, again, this is more related to the maturity level of your company and what you want to achieve. I think that is a easy and natural connection for the traditional hardware partners to go to the infrastructure side. It's a significant change in the AI world around the processing capacity that is needed, either on-premise or off-premise in the cloud. It's a clear demand for a new networking structure, because if you think now in the networking concepts, the networking is changing drastically, because the interaction in networking that these inference models need to have is tremendous. And if you think in a future where you have multiple engines talking to each other, talking to databases, talking to people, then the requirements of network will vary, and it's a great opportunity in the networking space. But if you think in all this introduces a new paradigms and connections and flow of data, then you now need to begin to talk about security for AI. And that is a complete new space too, meaning we have obviously the traditional security, but now you need to rethink security, not only in the context of how you use AI to improve security, but how you secure AI, because secure the models, secure the access to the interaction of data, secure how those agents will interact. Imagine now you are beginning to transition decision power from a person to an agent. Imagine that somebody hacked that agent, what he can do. Then again, you need a new way to think about then all this topic of infrastructure, from the data processing to the storage to the networking to the security, is a huge opportunity and for partners, and is very adjacent to what they do today. But obviously where the big transformation will be is how you apply AI to processes, how you build these agents, how you model or help the customers to produce that operational efficiency or to accelerate time to revenue from the perspective of market. And that is a complete new generation of opportunity that go from capitalizing in what I call embedded AI. That is, many of the products and applications that we sell and do today, they now are introducing AI and need to be translate in real use cases and scenarios, and the partners have a great opportunity to activate on that. And then it's more the customized private models now with a specific vertical knowledge or industry that will drastically change processes. And I will say starting for services, meaning everything that have a relationship with massive human interaction is something that agents can do effectively. HR, as an example, you can really revolutionize the way that you answer questions, provide time to answer for many things in HR. You have sales, how you sell to customers, how you answer. You have support tickets. All that is an opportunity that can be afforded.
Well, I actually want to loop back to your previous answer, because we spoke about how do you have a globalization and a localization, maybe philosophy, and you spoke about embedding common language and frameworks and almost that ability of how do we have a similar thought structure for how we decide on how we execute decision making. That for me is a perfect use case, right? You maybe sharpened my language slightly in terms of we don't want to teach our people how to think, but we absolutely do want to teach AI how to think our philosophy as opposed to someone else's philosophy.
Exactly.
And so building agents to allow people to make decisions in line with the type of decisions that we would ourselves make if we were in that same situation. I want to give a very sort of example that I've built within my own organization. We have built an agentic workflow that analyzes each step within our sales process. And so it reviews and analyzes how did a salesperson perform in that meeting, and that meeting contextually understood what the objective of the meeting and how we do it, and gives feedback. To be honest, it saved me hundreds of hours because it means I don't have to listen to every single sales call that happens. But what we do have is this process where people go, oh, I should have answered that objection like this because of this meeting where we handled that objection very well, and this is how it works. And suddenly you get this conversion improvement, this not efficiency improvement, but effectiveness improvement. Is actually the one thing that I think most people radically underestimate when it comes to AI. Is I think they think, how do we do what we do today, but cheaper? And my argument is that is true, but it's what do we do today, but better?
And what we did in that direction to support the partners is that we release a program that is called Destination AI. And in Destination AI, we are now doing several things. We basically enforce all these capabilities that the partners can access and understand, and we help them to evolve from where they are to where they want to be. And we release sub-programs, including, as an example, a matrix model where, based on your maturity model, you can see the type of vendors, products, etc., where you can participate, or sub-programs that will specifically give you capabilities in the infrastructure specifically side, in the embedded side, or in the modeling development side. Then equally that we discussed previously, the strategy and the framework, we create a complete framework and support model and enablement model and tooling to help partners to understand how they want to take advantage of this opportunity and how they will use all the resources that we put on the table for them to maximize that opportunity.
Yeah, I think to me, it leaves me to be really excited about where I think the opportunities lie, because I think we are looking at operational efficiency being the bare minimum of the improvements, but also where I think a lot of that value. I'm sort of fascinated at a macroeconomic perspective. If I were to ask go-to-market leaders or entrepreneurs of big software companies, hey, where is the biggest skills gap that exists today? They'd say we don't have enough software engineers. We need 1,000 more software development people to help us code more effectively. I think if I would speak to them today, they might give me a different answer as AI starts to drive the efficiency and effectiveness of those same software people to be able to scale their workflow much further. If I can ask you that question for in 2-3 years' time, the world's going to radically shift based on AI. What are the skill gaps that you think people should be investing and protecting themselves against that will occur in a couple of years' time?
Yeah, as you just said, right? The topic of expertise and the areas of expertise are changing in terms of requirement. If as you said, 10 years ago, I will say, okay, if you stood computer science, probably you will be in a safe place, in a good place. Now I'm doubting about that. Uh, but that is real and not, because if you study computer science and you are a researcher in AI, Mark
You're doing
Zuckerberg
it
can pay
very
you
well.
$100 million, right? Then it's always opportunity for everybody. Uh, but in reality, now I think that if you study, if you plan to really evolve in where AI will capture your full potential, is in deep expertise in knowledge of industries, segments, or areas of activity, meaning what AI will bring is the ability to drastically improve, accelerate, and optimize things. But honestly, you need to have the ability to understand those things. You need to have the deep knowledge. And I don't think that a guy who learned to code lose anything today, because he already know how to structure a process and a think model. Now, what these people need to really complement is how you understand pure science, or how you understand a specific vertical industry, in how you help the people to apply those models to processes and activities. Then I think that the biggest skill gaps that we will continue seeing is obviously deep expertise in the AI space. But in addition to that, this expertise in vertical industry and segments of markets, and actionable knowledge, the way that you transform knowledge in practical, actionable knowledge through the implementation of AI. A good example is that we did recently is we worked with IBM and we launched a program that is called Watson 100. And what we did with that was to create a complete process where we elevate the skills of partners across multiple regions, working in their understanding of the application of AI technology to specific use cases in companies, like I have been describing to you, in the HR segment, in the legal segment, in the sales segment, in the service segment, with use cases that they can bring to those companies to provide that level of automation and increase in delivery and operational efficiency. The program has been very successful. Partners that in the past wasn't involved completely in AI or don't have a deep understanding, they gain that, and now they are actively working with customers in real life use cases scenarios. Then I think that the opportunity is tremendous, but the scarcity will continue in terms of pure science and in terms of vertical industry. The other area that I still think that will be a scarcity is security. I think that security continue independent of the rise of AI. Security will be a place where still skills will continue being needed.
I completely agree. I'd add one extra bit of flavor that I can't believe I'm about to say. But we actually, I believe, strongly lack the consultancy skill. And I think a lot of listeners are going to roll their eyes and say, Alex, the last thing we need is more consultants. But I really think where AI is headed is such unique and customized deployment cycles. The ability for a third party to come in and ask true business questions, not, hey, what are you doing about communications, but really, what's the thing that's keeping you up at night, that's most stressful about your business today, and then applying a technological answer to that fear or that concern or that opportunity. That ability to understand the customer deeply and then turn that into a technical solution. I think that's where we see I think we see the market headed. I don't think that's going to be a person, right? It's how do we get that computer science person to come together with that McKinsey style consultant to come together with that vertical specialist, and then those units work together in some sort of tiger team. But I think that's where we're going to see some of the most sort of creative and valuable deployments.
I think the topic is so broad that is opportunities everywhere. At the same time, we are in the hype of the model, meaning everybody is expecting that this will do everything. We will need to really see what this do in the future.
Sure.
I think that expectations versus still real implementation have a significant gap at this point, but it's no doubt that that gap will be covered in the future. What I always challenge myself and the team is the other thing that we need to be careful is in some way predict when this will happen, but at the same time, not necessarily believe everything that you read, because the reality of the implementation of this technology will variate in time.
Yeah, completely agree. Perfect. Well, I'm always looking for the future and how we can do things a lot better, which is why I like to cheat at the end of the podcast, where I ask my current guest to recommend my next guest. Sergio, who did you have in mind?
Yeah, I have. Well, this industry is so amazing. So many good people in the market. But I was remembering a good friend that is Alvaro Celis. Is an executive. He was an executive in Microsoft for many years, working in partners in different regions, and at the end the ISV space. Then I think that he could be a good candidate for you to explore.
Amazing. Look forward to having him on. And Sergio, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. It's been awesome.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. Great to have this conversation with you.
Thanks.